What is up, everybody? Alright, so I just figured I would record my drive to work. I don't know how many of you's interested in seeing that, but I thought it'd be pretty neat. So I'm leaving the house. I got it's on my dash cam. So I've got the sound. I cut the sound out of my dash cam. I listen to music on the way, and I talked to my mom just about the whole way. Well, we're just driving out of the neighborhood, and we're heading to the interstate. And probably the most boring part of the trip will be the ride on the interstate. That's the longest part. So you can watch some of the interstate, or you can just forward it on to when I get into Ruston. You can see we drive through town in Ruston, and then we don't drive all through the university on the way there. I mean, when I go to school, I take a different exit now, and it puts me right there where my building is. So yeah, but we're driving out of the neighborhood right now. We're fixing to get on Arkansas Road and head to the interstate. Alright, so we are just about to the interstate. Let's see, I believe up here we got the library right there on the right. I know it's kind of hard to see right and left on this, but the interstate's right up here. You can see the road's a little bumpy, but yeah. Right here is where I take my exit, or get on the ramp to get onto the interstate. And we are off to Ruston. I straddle that line there because it's even rougher if you don't. This is my trip every morning. And we are on the interstate. Time to get up and go now. Alright, so yeah, this is just interstate the whole way. I don't think nothing exciting really happened on the way there or on the interstate today. Alright, so this building up here on the left, that's Louisiana Delta Community College. It's a small, they got several locations around here. I've teach some online classes for them. That's a nice little place. So not a whole lot to see on the interstate here, but there's a few places. So up here, we're coming up on an exit to Calhoun. It's a small little town. This is actually where my brother lives, up here in Calhoun. They got a high school there. I think they got a junior high and elementary, but yeah. But this is driving past Calhoun right here.
Coming over this little hill right here, you'll see this this overpass up here. But right here under this overpass, this is where the police sit, right here. They always have people pulled over. So I can pretty much tell you where they all sit. I've been driving this for 20 years now. So yeah, it's a nice little drive. It's not too bad. Alright, so up here we got a little exit we can take you to the Jimmy Davis State Park. You can probably see the sign. It's this sign up here. But yeah, you can go to Jimmy Davis State Park. I've never been there. I'd like to go. My hair's pretty nice. So yeah, that's that exit.
we are getting into Ruston right now. There's 3 exits in Ruston. This is the first exit right here. That exit right there actually take you to Farmable. And this second exit up here, that's the exit I always take. Well, actually, this is the first year that I've started taking this exit. I used to take the third exit to get to my building, but they closed that off. I think it's a one-way now or something. They did some kind of construction and redid that road. So I've started taking this middle exit up here, and it actually gets me to my building faster. You can see they got all the food stuff over there on the right. Ruston's not very big. But it is I guess you can consider it a college town. Ruston Dubach exit. So this exit that we take here, we will actually, when we get to the red light, we'll go through this red light and go to that second red light up there. But no, up here at this first light, you turn right here, and you got to go a little ways down there. That takes you to Dubach. And I actually lived in Dubach when I was in grad school. Me and a friend of mine, his parents had a trailer on some land back there, and I stayed in the trailer while I was going to grad school, so I didn't have to drive so far over here. But yeah, we lived there for a while. So we're turning left right here, and this road here goes through town, and we go through some red lights, and then we turn right at the red light down there at the end, and it takes me straight to my building. They've got they got a lot of shops here. A lot of little stores and stuff down through here. They actually have the Louisiana Blind Center here. There's a lot of blind people in Ruston because of this blind center. I think it's one of the top ones in the country. Yeah, they have them do all kinds of things. Yeah, you see a lot of blind people walking in town and everything. It just amazes me how they do that and get to places. But it's up here on the left, on down here a little ways. But yeah, this is the big town of Ruston.
just a lot of shops around here. Now this railroad track right here, the worst railroad track in the state, I bet you. You gotta go so slow over it. There's the Louisiana Blind Center right there to the left. I've had some blind students in my classes before, and it's just, it amazes me how they can do the math like that. I know there's no way I could have done it like that. It's just, it's amazing. And right here we turn at McDonald's. And so there's Tech right there in front of us. I have to bring my bike over here one day and ride all through the campus. Give you all a little tour of the campus. But I'll show you up here on the right where the building is that I teach in. I teach in it a lot. I didn't get to park in front of my building today. This is one of the classes where I get there. My class is at 12:30. I think my dash cam time is an hour ahead. There's the building I teach in. That's the IESB, Integrated Engineering and Science Building. I teach in there. All four of my classes are in there this quarter. No, I'm sorry, 3 of them. And 3 of my classes are there, and another one's somewhere is in my office building, the building where my office is. That building right there on the right, that's Tech Point. They got some companies in there. So you see the students, they're walking to class. This is right here, right when class is letting out. And then that building right there on the building on the right past that stop sign, that's my building. That's the building my office is in. It's an old building. And I normally park right there on the right, but you can see usually I can get a spot about right there. On Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays I can park up closer because I'm usually the first one there. But you can see all of them are taken. So I've got to go park over here on the left. But you know, that's all right. I need the exercise. So we go through the red light. And we go right on around here. And we make us a little U-turn. You see the blue stripes? That's where faculty parks. The white ones are for the students. So I'm gonna turn on back and I park right up here. And that is my trip to work. Just had to park a little bit further away from the building today, but that's fine. Well, I hope you enjoyed it.